Hey everybody, I'm Dan Wells. I write horror, fantasy, and science fiction, and I talk about games on the internet. Today, I'm going to talk once more about Warhammer Fantasy, one of my very favorite games. 4th edition is hitting it out of the park, and they've got so many supplements and adventures all ready to go, including this one we're going to talk about today, which is called Night of Blood. This is an old one. It is one of the oldest Warhammer Fantasy adventures, and I would say almost certainly the most played Warhammer Fantasy adventure. If you go all the way back to the 80s and first edition, like I did. The reason I want to talk about it today is because it is currently free on DriveThru RPG. It's usually only a couple of bucks to begin with, and more than worth the price. But if you've been tempted by this game and you want to give it a shot, this scenario is free and a really good one at that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it up front, and then I'm going to give a huge spoiler warning and send everybody away, and then we're going to get into the spoilery talk about this adventure. So if you do not want this adventure spoiled for you, just turn off the video right now and go to DriveThru RPG and get your free copy of it and play it with your friends. Okay? But first, let's talk about it. So, Night of Blood is, like I said, it's one of the oldest adventures, and it's very simple. I used to think of this, and I used to use this adventure as kind of the ideal first adventure to run people through, simply because it is a fantastic introduction to the old world and to the setting of Warhammer Fantasy. I don't think that that is the best way to do it anymore. I have changed my opinion. And the more that I have run this and the more that I have dealt with this particular adventure, the more convinced I become that this is the ideal, like, second or third adventure encounter to throw in while they're traveling somewhere else. Give them a chance to go to an inn or a roadhouse and kind of deal with it and then move on. Give them a chance to tangle with some bandits or some thieves or something like that. Ideally, nothing too unbelievably supernatural. You know, let them know what the world is like. Let them know how dangerous the old world can be and this particular game system can be. It's violent and it's deadly. And then, after they have a healthy respect for the imminent loss of life, then throw them into Night of Blood. It will give them a lot of context to deal with things, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So anyway, the basic setup for this adventure, and this is the non-spoilery version, okay? The basic setup is that the characters are traveling from one place to another. This adventure is small enough that you can really fit it into a much larger adventure or campaign very easily, because it doesn't have to take place in any particular area. It's very small, and it happens while traveling. Characters are traveling from one place to another. They hear some howling. They think there's some beastmen out there. However they deal with the beastmen, they deal with the beastmen. They can fight them, which is inadvisable. They can run away from them and hide, which is pretty smart. Assuming that they are hiding, or that they tried to fight and everything went wrong and now they're running, they're going to be seeking the shelter of the first roadhouse they can find. And that is where the real meat of this adventure happens. They come upon one called the Hooded Man. And the Hooded Man is boarded up and shuttered, but there are obviously lights on inside, and so something is a little off. Not necessarily nefarious. Maybe they're just lazy and didn't want to open the door because it's raining. Who knows what's going on? Anyway, that spins off into an incredibly simple but incredibly flavorful and open-ended adventure scenario. I don't know if I would call this a sandbox scenario or not, because there is a story going on. But one of the brilliant things about this particular, about the Night of Blood, is that the story is going to happen whether the characters are involved or not. So in one sense, it's a really good way of kind of punishing or teaching inactive players and helping them involve themselves in the story. On the other hand, It's just really fun and harkens back to one of the other ones I've talked about before, which is called Night at the Three Feathers, in which there is going to be stuff happening anyway, and the characters have total freedom to explore and to interact and to choose how involved they personally want to be. Now, there absolutely may come a point where their involvement becomes forced on them, whether they want it to or not. But in order to talk about that, we have to get into our spoiler section. So, here's the non-spoilery ending. Everybody go pick this up. It's free on DriveThruRPG right now. Okay? At least at the time of this recording. Now I'm going to pause, and we're going to wait. It's spoiler time, so if you don't want spoilers, get out of town. Just waiting. Just giving people as long as possible. Turn this off if you don't want the adventure spoiled. If you're a player, turn it off. If you're a game master, go ahead and stick around. Okay, so let's talk about the Night of Blood. We're going to get into our PDF here. So the Night of Blood begins, like I said, with, a little hunt. And it's very small. There's some beastmen and there's some mutants, and that's it. And it really, look at this. It is maybe 6 paragraphs in total, and then you're done. Because the real meat of it comes at the Hooded Man. And so here's the big spoilery part. The Hooded Man has been raided by mutants who are cultists of a chaos god. And so when you show up, they've already killed the people who live there and work there. And when the characters show up, the cultists are like, oh crap, we need to figure out what to do now. And so they pretend that they're just the innkeeper. This guy is Otto. He pretends to be the innkeeper. This guy, I can't remember his name, but he pretends to be one of the helpers. This scary-looking dude and this scary-looking dude are going to try to stay hidden. But what looks to the characters and what looks to the players like a very simple night in an inn with kind of some weird vibes is actually a full-blown horror scenario. They've essentially come in halfway through a home invasion. These cultists are trying to do a ritual, and that's how the scenario is going to end. But between now and then, they don't want... They're a little worried that these characters are going to get in, going to get in the way. They're certainly dangerous. They're a lot more, better armed and equipped than the innkeeper himself was. So the cultists don't want to start anything. They just want to lay low, pretend that everything's normal, and see if they can deceive these player characters into a sense of complacency. And then while they're all asleep, possibly with the help of being sedated, then the cultists are going to try to summon a demon in the middle of the night. And so you do get a chance for a lot of interaction. You get a chance for a lot of fun role-playing as the characters kind of interact with the innkeeper and his servant and all of these other kind of strange things. You also have a wonderful opportunity for investigation, for sneaking around, for second guessing, for paranoia, almost a psychological horror scenario. Are we convinced that there's something wrong? Are we going to actually start a fight with this? Is he a totally normal innkeeper who's just kind of weird? Or is there really some kind of nefarious plot going on? And of course, if they investigate too much, and if they sneak into rooms they're not supposed to be in, they will find blood. They will find perhaps the murdered innkeeper. There's a stable boy who's being, munched on by, I think, this creepy guy out in the stable house. And so there's a lot of really cool things for them to do. And then, of course, at the end, the fantastic maps, there's all this great stuff. Kurtz is the name of a sedative, so they try to sedate the players. And then, of course, at the end, they hold a ceremony and they summon a horror. And the horror is going to start going nuts. It is possible. I've had players who, are absolutely paranoid and they try to investigate everything and they assume everything's wrong and then they try to solve it. I've also had players in this scenario who who are all too aware of how dangerous this could potentially be, and so they just hole up in their rooms. And then, you know, maybe some of them are asleep, maybe some of them are awake, and they start to hear weird sounds in the night, and then maybe they hear what sounds like chanting, and if they don't go down and do anything about it, they're going to hear this horror show up and start stalking through the inn looking for people to eat. And inevitably at some point they're going to have to fight or run away. Ideally, they're going to fight. One of my favorite parts of this adventure, though, is right here at the end. Okay? The characters have shown up. They have maybe found murdered bodies. They have seen these attacks. They've seen a monster get summoned, or they maybe have stopped the monster from being summoned. And then in the morning, any of the player characters who are still alive are probably surrounded by carnage. And then the road wardens show up. And the characters have to explain how they got into this situation, and hope that the road wardens believe their story instead of just locking them up and dragging them away on the assumption that they're murderers. So it's very simple. I mean, you can see down here, what is this, page 9? It's a short scenario, comes with a great little handout you can give the players. And then it's just so... Oops, I shrunk everything. It's just a simple scenario that has a ton of options and opportunities in it. It's really well designed. It is beautifully crafted to give players clues and agency, to give them a kind of beautiful mix of structure and non-structure. There's nothing railroady about this. They can choose exactly how they want to interact with the characters, how they want to involve themselves in the story that's going on, and then with also some choices and some consequences based on what they decide to do. And then at the end, just how quickly can you convince the road wardens to trust you. Anyway, Night of Blood is free right now. So if you've got the Warhammer thing, or if you've picked up a starter version of the rules and you're looking for a good scenario to play through, I recommend this one highly. It's the kind of thing that gets people fired up. It helps people understand what the setting is like and fall in love with it and want to play more. And it also, I think, approaches the kind of core themes, the ethos of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay head on, which is kind of dirty, grungy, medieval investigation, Cthulhu in pre-Renaissance Germany, basically. Anyway, great scenario. Check it out. If you did not want to see the spoilers and you hung around and saw them anyway, then I apologize. I told you to leave. You should have left. Anyway, you are awesome. Thank you for watching my review. I will see you on the next one. Bye.